Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry that I can't be in the class live this morning. I'm still not feeling too good, but I'm just going to do my best this morning. We'll see how things go. We're going to start by looking at a couple of things that I just want to highlight from your work on worksheet 2. I haven't finished marking everybody's worksheet 2 yet, but there seem to be a couple of things that are cropping up for everybody. The first thing is I'm not going to look too much at, or I'm not going to look at all at key signatures and scales. The mistakes that are happening there are more to do with just the circle of fifths and getting that correct. Please be careful that you look at the key that I ask for properly. So some of you, for example, are writing F sharp major instead of F major. The difference between the two is quite important. F sharp major has 6 sharps. F major has 1 flat. So just make sure that you are completely sure which key you are working with. So that's the first thing. Now, what I want to show you, I'm going to share a screen with you so that you can see something that I want to point out. So just tell me if you can see the screen when it comes up, please. Can you see the screen? Okay. Now, this is the transposition exercise. And one of the students has done this where you'll see the stem of the note is on the wrong side of the note. So when the stem of a note points downwards, it must always be on the left-hand side of the note. So it should look like this. See, the note is on the left-hand side, okay? The other thing that a lot of you are doing is when you transpose the exercise, you kept the tails the same direction as they were in the original. So like this, okay? So even though the notes are high up on the stave, you kept the tails or the stems going upwards. But when you do the transposition, you've still got to follow all the normal rules of writing notes. And that means that when a note is above this middle line here, the tail must face downwards. So it should look like this. The tails are going down. Okay. I want to show something to you. A lot of people are doing this. Okay. So if you've made this mistake, you're not alone. Just have a look at this note over here. Do you see that it's so small that it looks like it could be an E or it could be a D? It's not clear enough whether it's a D or an E. The same is true over here. Do you see this note here? It's only just on the line. Your notes need to be very clearly drawn over the line or in the space. Okay, please make sure that your notes are very clearly on the line or in the space. So let me show you an example of what is a good note. There's a good note head. You can see exactly that this is a D or that this is an F. Okay, so make sure that your notes are clearly drawn. Are there any questions about that so far?
No, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So I was want to ask the difference between the F major and the F sharp major scale. I didn't hear you clearly.
The difference between the two?
Yes.
All right, just hang on a second. I'm going to see if I can find a picture for you. All right, I'm going to share a screen with you now. Tell me when you can see the colorful circle of fifths.
Yes, I can see it.
All right. Do you see that over here, there's F? And you see that the key signature is 1 flat. It's right near C, isn't it? There's F.
Yeah.
Here is F sharp. F sharp has 6 sharps in it, okay? If we have a look, so that's the first part, okay? Now I'm going to show you another picture. Sorry, I've just got to find the picture. All right, here it comes. Just hang on a second. I'm going to share the screen. Tell me when you can see the keyboard. Can you see the piano keyboard?
Yes, sir, I can see it.
All right. Here's the note F. Okay, we can go down. There's the note F. F major has these notes. Look, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Those are the notes of F major. Okay, F sharp. There's F sharp over here. The notes of F sharp major are F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp. Can you see the difference now between the two?
Yes, sir, I can see it. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions before we go on? Okay. Now I'm going to share another screen with you. I noticed that a number of you are struggling with aspects of the clapping. So I want to look specifically at the clapping exercise for week 1 and week 2. I'm going to share that with you now. Can you please tell me when you can see the clapping for week 1 on the screen? Okay. Now, this is going to be a bit tricky to do online, so you'll just have to bear with me, because if we were in class, I'd be able to clap with you more easily. Online, there are delays in you hearing my clapping and you responding to it. So we're just going to see how it works, okay? The important thing when you are clapping an exercise in simple time is that you work out how each of the beat patterns works. So when you're in simple time, as we are in the exercise for week 1, we're dealing with 3/4 time. That means 3 crotchet beats in a bar. So let's imagine that this is a crotchet beat. Da, 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 da. Okay. Now, if we want to work out what the quaver beats are, they're going to be at double that speed. Da, 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 but exactly equal. Da, 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 da. And if we want the semiquavers, yet da, 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 da. Okay, 2 quavers per pulse, 4 semiquavers per pulse. So working out how the quavers and semiquavers works is quite simple. Okay, so the first bar would be da, 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 di, da, da, da. Most of you are getting that fine. The difficulty was in bar 3, okay? And it came with this rhythm over here, the quaver and the 2 semiquavers. So how, when you're on your own at home, how do you work out how to clap a rhythm like that? So here's my suggestion. The first thing to do is to look at the rhythm itself. What does the rhythm consist of? So if we look at this one over here, it's got a quaver and 2 semiquavers. Okay. And that all fits into 1 pulse. So here's a starting principle. The first thing you can do is say to yourself, what is the smallest unit in this set of rhythms? And the smallest unit is semiquavers. How many semiquavers in a beat or in a pulse? There are 4. So here's the pulse: 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Those are the semiquavers, right? And a quaver is worth 2 semiquavers. This first note here is a quaver. It's worth 2 semiquavers. So if we just add 2 semiquavers together, we'll feel what it feels like. So here is the pulse. Okay. And let's give each of the semiquavers a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this exercise here, instead of if we want to clap it, we would clap on the first semiquaver and the third and the fourth, because the second one here, the first and the second one, are added together. They become 1. Okay, so if we were going to clap them, dita 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 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, like that. Okay, do you see that? To get to that point, we would give each of the semiquavers a number, and we'd say, I have to clap on semiquaver 1. I don't clap on semiquaver 2 because a quaver is worth 2 semiquavers. So I've combined them together. But I do clap on semiquaver 3 and semiquaver 4. Okay, let me put it out. Let me draw a picture of it for you so that you can see it more clearly. I'm just going to have to open a new document. It's just going to take me a little while, sorry, while I do this. Because I want to show you what I'm trying to describe here. I think some of you might be thinking, what on earth is he talking about? So let me see if I can be more clear, just in case. Okay, I'm going to share a screen with you now. All right, so let's say we are working with 3/4 time. That means that we've got 1, 2, 3 quavers per bar. It also means that we've got, 6 quavers per bar, right? So each of these can divide into 2 quavers. So you with me? And so that's not what I want. Let me just find 4 semiquavers. 4 semiquavers. Four semiquavers. There you go. Okay. Each of those can also divide into 4 semiquavers. So this is one crotchet. Each crotchet into two quavers, and each of those 2 quavers can divide into 4 semiquavers. So we can have 3 crotchets in a bar, or 6 quavers in a bar, or 12 semiquavers in a bar. Okay. Now, when we are confronted with a rhythm like this one, we can look at it from this perspective. If I put this one underneath it, there, like that, and underneath, I give each of the semiquavers a number. Space these out. Okay, so this is number, let's just move this a bit closer. This one is number 1, this one is number 2, this one is number 3, this one is number 4. Okay, now if we want to get this rhythm to be like this, all we have to do is to combine those 2 semiquavers. We add this semiquaver to that one. We add semiquaver 1 to semiquaver 2. Agreed? But we leave those 2 separate. So if we were clapping semiquavers 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be the 4 semiquavers. But if we want to clap this one, we are going to add 1 and 2 together. So we just clap on 1 and we keep 2 and 3. If you look at this picture here, you'll see that 3 and 4 line up with each other. 1 lines up with it. So we've clapped 1, 3, 4. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If we go back to the original rhythm, the bar looks like this. There's bar 3. So this note is worth 4 semiquavers, so we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the whole bar goes like this. Da da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da. Okay. Ah, da 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 da. That is bar 3. The other bar that many of you struggled with was this one here, where we go into triplets. So we have said that 3/4 time is simple time. And that means that the pulse divides into 2. A triplet tells us that we need to divide the pulse for a short time into 3. So if this is the pulse, ba, 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 ba. Okay, that's the pulse. In simple time, it divides into 2. Da, 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 da. That's 2 per pulse. When we've got a triplet, it needs to go into 3. Ya, ba, ba, dee, da, da, dee, da, da, dee, da, da. Okay, so that bar will be ba, ya, ba, ba, dee, da, da. Okay, does that help you with weeks 1 clapping? Good. Okay. Now let's move on to week 2. So is week 2's clapping simple time or compound? Can you tell me, is it simple or compound?
Compound.
Compound. Yes. So is the pulse dividing into 2 or to 3?
Into 3.
Into 3. So 9/8 is what we call compound triple time. That means that there are 3 pulses in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So when we look at these beats over here, these are dotted quavers, which are equal to dotted crotchets, which are equal to 3 quavers each. Okay. Each of these is equal to 3 quavers. So when we look at the first bar, these are going to be worth 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da, da, da. These are each worth 1. 1, 1, 1. So if we're counting 9 in a bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the first bar. Okay. When we have something like this over here, there's a crotchet. A crotchet, how many quavers are there in a crotchet? 2, yes. So we're going to count 2 for this and 1 for that, like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, so whereas over here we had 1, 2, 3, a clap for each of the beats. In this one, the first 2 are combined. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, does that make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this one here is very similar to this one. It works in the same principle. The only thing that's different is you'll see that where we had a quaver here, we've got 2 semiquavers. Okay. So we're just going to split this quaver into 2 semiquavers. So when you get 1, 2, 3 on the third beat, you're going to split that into 2. This is what it would sound like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, like that. Okay. So let's have a look at these 3 bars all together. If I clap them, I'm going to count 9 so you can hear how it works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, one of the ways that will make this a little bit easier for you, which the kind of thing that we did last semester, I showed this to you, but maybe some of you have forgotten this briefly. I just need to open a new document to show this to you. Let's find it quickly. Right, I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to share a new screen with you. Here is that exercise. Okay. Now, you may remember this is, let me just make this a little bit. Okay. Last semester, what I recommended that you do was to write out each of the beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that when you were counting, you'd know where to put the clap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last one here is 9. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. There you can see that I've got to put 2 of those for the space of 9. Then on this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That note is worth all 6 of those. So this is 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. This one here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All of them together. Okay, does that help you?
Very much so.
Good. Okay. So when you're working on these on your own, and this is, I mean, this is why we're learning these things, so that you can be able to work these things out on your own. One of the easier ways to work out all of these is to write out the beat patterns underneath. Okay. And it's easier to see where you need to place your claps. All right. So that is the clapping that we are doing at the moment. You'll see that there is a clapping exercise for this week as well. And it's also in compound time, but I think that you might actually find it quite simple now that we have gone through this exercise. Again, I recommend that you write out each of the beats and give it a try. Okay, like that. I'd really like you, each of you, to try the clapping and the singing exercises, because eventually you're actually going to do this in front of me on your own. So you may as well get used to doing it now. Otherwise, if you don't have any practice in doing it beforehand, I think you're going to struggle with it when it comes to the actual test. Okay. All right, now let's change gear and look at some of the written work for this week. So I'm going to share a screen now. Please, will you tell me if you can, or when you can see it? It's a PowerPoint. Can you see it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So today we're going to be looking at intervals again. Now, we've looked at intervals before, but only very briefly. So let's just revise what we have done. So seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can be major or minor, augmented or diminished. And you can see how they work if you look at this over here. We learned about all of the intervals we did last semester were major intervals. If the interval becomes 1 semitone smaller, it becomes a minor interval. If it goes down 2 semitones, it becomes diminished. If it gets bigger, it becomes augmented. We also learned that fourths, fifths, and octaves could be perfect, augmented, or diminished. Now, I want to show you a picture of what that actually means, because it's easy to think about that in terms of theory in a theoretical perspective, but what does it actually look like? So I'm sharing a screen now so that you can see what that would mean. Tell me when you can see. All right, let's start with the fifths, the fourths, and the octaves, the perfect intervals. So here is a perfect fifth, C to G, C, D, E, F, G, 5, okay? There's the perfect fifth. If we make the interval 1 semitone bigger, so we take the G to a G sharp, it becomes augmented. But if we take the G down a semitone, it becomes diminished. We make it smaller. Okay. Let's look at a normal major interval. Now, here is a major sixth, C to A. C, D, E, F, G, A. It's a sixth, okay? If we make the A an A sharp, so we've taken it up a semitone, it becomes an augmented sixth. If we make the A one semitone smaller, it becomes a minor sixth. And if we make that A another semitone smaller, we make it a double flat, it becomes a diminished sixth. Okay, now you can see what it looks like. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Any questions so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Does it matter how many semitones it is going up in terms of it being augmented? Because especially with the major intervals, because one semitone lower it's minor and then two it's diminished, but then with augmented, is it just augmented?
You mean if we were looking at that picture of the sixth, if the A sharp became an A double sharp, is that the kind of thing you're asking? If it goes another,
Yes. Yes.
that's doubly augmented. So
Okay, thank you, sir.
okay, good question. You're very seldom going to get that, but of course you can. Okay, and also you will this diminished major interval, I mean, or the diminished second, third, sixth, and seventh is very rare. Okay, so it's unlikely that you will get that. Any other questions so far? All right, and I'm going to continue. Now, to remind you, intervals can be melodic or harmonic. Who can tell me what the difference is?
Harmonic is when the two notes are played at the same time or sung at the same time, and then melodic, they kind of just follow one another.
Correct. So you would write harmonic ones, the notes are written on top of each other, but melodic, they're written next to each other. So far, we've only been actually looking at melodic intervals. So we haven't looked at notes that are written on top of each other. Later this semester, we'll be looking at harmonic intervals. But intervals are always calculated from the lowest note. So you saw when I was looking at those ones that we looked at a few minutes ago, I started counting from the lowest note. Remember, it's not always the first note that is the lowest note. Sometimes the lowest note is the second note. So just be aware of that. The intervals are always calculated from the lowest note. And then when you are writing intervals in words, you always put the quality first and then the size. So a perfect fourth, not a fourth perfect. Okay. Now I'm just going to stop sharing here for a moment and go through how we used to do this. So when you got an interval before last semester, we used to just calculate the size. And then if it was a second, a third, a sixth, or a seventh, we just called it major. And if it was a fourth, a fifth, or an octave, we just called it perfect. Okay. Today, we're going to learn a new technique to learn or to show you how the system of major, minor, augmented, diminished actually works. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen with you now and work through a particular example, which is in your textbook if you want to follow along with it. All right, so let's have a look at this interval over here. Can you all see that screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're in the treble clef. And we've got two notes here. This note is in the first space, so it is an F. This note is on the third line, so it is a B, and it has a flat in front of it. So it's a B flat, okay? Our steps were, as you'll remember, first we work out what the notes are, F and B. We work out what the lowest note is, F, and then we count, F, G, A, B, which gets us to 4. So we know that this is a fourth. Last semester, because it was a fourth, automatically it was perfect, okay? But now we are going to be learning how to do this more carefully so that we can tell if it's a perfect fourth, an augmented fourth, or diminished fourth. So there you see. So this is a fourth. Fourths can be perfect, augmented, or diminished. So how do we work this out? So our next step is to write out the major scale which starts on the lowest note of the interval. Let's go back up to that interval. We said that the lowest note is F. So this is why, you remember earlier we were talking about the difference between F and F sharp major. This is where it becomes so very important, okay? Let's go down here now. We're going to try and locate F major on the circle of fifths. Now, here is a very tiny picture of the circle of fifths. There is F major, and it's got one flat, okay? So we write out the scale of F. F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. It's got the 8 notes. And then we add in the B flat, just like we would if we were writing the scales that you've been doing in worksheets 1 and 2. Okay. So far, so good. Are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to revise. Once we've done the first 3 steps that we always used to do, we add the 4th step, which is to use the lowest note. In this case, it was an F. And we write a major scale on starting with that note. So we go to the circle of fifths to identify what the key signature of that note is, and then we write out the scale. And every time you're going to write this, by the way, as a scale without a key signature. So you just add all of the sharps or the flats in front of each note separately. Now, our step 5 is to compare the higher note of the interval with the note which has the same letter name. Okay, this will become important when we look at the next example after this one. So here's the original interval, F and B flat. So we go to the scale and we look for a B. There's the B. Okay. In this case, the note over here, B flat, is the same as this one, B flat. They are exactly the same. They are Bs and they both have a flat in front of them. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Good. If the notes are exactly the same, then the interval is perfect. If it's a fourth, a fifth, or an octave, okay? Or it will be major if it's a second, third, sixth, or seventh. So if the note is exactly the same as the one on the major scale, the interval will be perfect or it will be major, okay? So this particular one is a perfect fourth because in F major, there is a B flat. And we've got a B flat here, so this one is perfect. Now let's have a look at that same interval with a slight difference. Tell me when you can see the screen. Okay. Do you see here, we've got the treble clef, we've got an F, and we've got a B. Do you see that this time there's no flat? Okay. We go through the steps as before. We find the letter names of the two notes, F and B. We find the lowest note, F, and then we calculate the size, F, G, A, B. It's still a fourth. Okay, so nothing has changed so far. So why isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay, now, is this a perfect fourth? So no, we're going to see if it is. First, we need to find the key signature of the lowest note. Find the key signature. So that's what we did before. We went on to the circle of fifths and we found that F major has a 1 flat, B flat. Okay, and then we write the scale of F major out, including the B flat. Then we check the highest note of the interval. Remember that in this interval, the highest note was a B natural. But in the scale of F major, there is a B flat. So these two notes are not the same, are they? One is B natural, the other one is B flat. Do you see that they are different? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. This one here is a B natural. There's no flat in front of it. Okay. But the one in the F major scale had a B flat in front of it. So they are not the same. Which note is higher? B natural or B flat? If we were looking at the keyboard, which note is higher? B flat or B natural?
B natural.
Yes, let me show you. Just going to find a picture of it. Can you all see the piano keyboard?
Yes, sir.
There's B flat. There is B natural. They're two different notes, okay? But the B natural one is higher than B flat. There's B flat. There's B natural. Okay. So here is the F that we started with. There's the B natural. If the interval was perfect, it would be exactly the same as the F major scale. Here's the F major scale. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Is there a B natural in the F major scale?
No, sir.
No, there isn't. So this isn't a perfect fourth. Now we've got to work out, is the interval bigger? Is it augmented? Or is the interval smaller? Is it diminished? So let's have a look. If the interval was perfect, F to B flat, that's the perfect interval. If it was bigger, it would go in this direction. If it was smaller, it would go in this direction to the G, to the A, and if it was bigger, it would go to the B. In this particular circumstance, it goes to the B. So it's going one semitone higher. It's not going to the A. So it's not a semitone smaller, it's a semitone bigger. So it is an augmented fourth. Okay, let's just go through this. Here we go. So here are the steps all written out for you so that you can see from beginning to end. Step 1, the lowest note is F. So we look for the key signature for F. It is 1 flat, B flat, and we write out the scale. There is the scale of F major. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Now we compare the second note of the interval, there's the second note of the interval, with the same letter name of the scale. There's the same letter name of the scale. See, I've drawn a line there so you can see them. We are comparing that note with that note. And we see that they are not the same. So we ask, is it higher or lower? The note is 1 semitone higher. So it is an augmented fourth. Okay, so that's one example. Now let's have a look at another example. What happens if the lowest note of your interval does not appear on the circle of fifths? Now we're going to use an example that's over here. This example over here where there is an A sharp as the lowest note. Just take a look at your circle of fifths now and tell me, is there an A sharp on the circle of fifths? Is there an A sharp?
No, sir.
No A sharp. So that kind of makes things a little bit more difficult for us. So how do we deal with it? Well, there are two options. Do you see when you look at this interval that the first note and the second note both have a sharp in front of them? Can you see that?
Yes.
When you have this case where both notes have a sharp in front of them, or both notes have a flat in front of them, then you can do exactly as I've written there. It says there, A sharp to C sharp is exactly the same as A to C. So we can just take out the sharps or the flats. But you can only do this, listen very carefully, you can only do this if both notes have a sharp in front of them or both notes have a flat in front of them. Have you got me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's try this version where we take both of the sharps away. So now we are dealing with a A going to a C. And now we calculate the interval just as we have before. The two notes are A and C, and the lowest note is an A. So if we calculate the size, A, B, C, we get a third. So we know that the size is a third. That's the easy part. Okay. Now we go back and find out the lowest note is an A. So we go to the circle of fifths and you'll see here's the circle of fifths. There's A. It tells us we've got 3 sharps. So we write out the A major scale. Here's the A major scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Can you remember the rhyme for the sharps? What is the rhyme for the sharps?
Father Charles goes down and ends battle.
Correct. So for 3 sharps, Father Charles goes. So there's F, Father, here's C, Charles, and there's G, goes. Right, so we've got the A major scale here. So far, so good. Now we compare the top note of the interval and the scale. So there's the interval, A to C. There's no sharp in front of it. But here in the scale is a sharp. Are they the same? No, they are not the same. So this is not a major third. Now we've got to work out, is it an augmented third or is it a minor third? The C in the interval is 1 semitone lower than the C sharp in the scale. Let's just go back here. There's C, there's C sharp. C sharp is higher than C natural. Agreed? Yes. So if we go back to that table, which we saw, if we start with a major interval, if it goes down 1 semitone, it becomes minor. So this is a minor third. Okay. Now let's have a look at another example of this where the 2 notes are not the same, or they don't both have sharps in front of them, but the first note is still unavailable on the circle of fifths. So take a look at your screen now. Let's say you've been given this interval over here. Do you see that interval there? The first note is an A sharp, the second note is an E. We've already said that A sharp is not on the circle of fifths, so we can't work it out. What we can do is transpose these to enharmonics. Do you remember what enharmonic notes are? Can anybody tell me what an enharmonic note is?
It would be the same note, but just with a different name. So like A sharp, it would be B flat.
Correct. Yes. So it's when the same note has a different name. Okay, so A sharp is the same as B flat. When we look at it on the piano, they're the same note. Okay. All right. So when this happens, we can use the enharmonic notes of the interval. So let me just show you. This is an A sharp, but it can also be written as a B flat. Okay. If we change one of the notes to enharmonic, we must change the other. So this is an E natural, and the same note as an enharmonic is an F flat. So this interval here is exactly the same as this interval over here. They're just written as enharmonics. Are you with me? And now we calculate it exactly as we have done before. So we're working with this one now, B flat and F flat, right? We calculate the notes. They are B flat and F flat. The lowest note was a B flat. So we count B, C, D, E, F, and we find that it's a fifth. The lowest note is B flat. So we go to B flat on the circle of fifths, and we find that it has 2 flats. Can you remember if the rhyme for the sharps is Father Charles goes down and ends battle, what is the series of flats? Can you tell me what the series of flats should be, in what order they should be? Anybody? Remember, it's the sharps going backwards. So if it was Father Charles goes down and ends battle, then it will be B, E, A, D, and so on and so forth, okay? So we know that the first two flats are going to be B and E. So we write down the scale. There's B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. There's the B flat. And we remember that if the first note is a B flat, the last note must also be a B flat. And there's the E flat. Now, step 5, we check the top note of the interval. There it is, with the note over here. And we see that they are not the same. In the scale, it's an F natural. On the interval, it is an F flat. Which note is higher, F natural or F flat?
F natural.
F natural, right. So if we're working with F flat, this note is lower. So usually fifths are perfect, but if it's one semitone lower, what must it be?
It diminished?
Diminished, correct. So this is a diminished fifth. Okay, let's stop there for a moment. All of you are very quiet, and it's difficult for me to work out whether you understand or not because I can't see your faces. The point is, and I've said this before, that this semester the work gets difficult very quickly. It puts all of the techniques that you learned last semester into practice. So you have to be familiar with things like Inharmonic Notes. And you have to be able to do Inharmonic Notes quickly and easily. You must be familiar with major scales and writing them out and using the circle of fifths. So if you aren't strong with these yet, you have to start working on them quickly, because if you can't do these now, this is the easier part of the semester. It only gets much more difficult after this. So it's time, if you don't understand those things, to start speaking up. If there's anything that I need to repeat here or go over again, you need to speak now so that I know what I need to go over. Seems like there are no questions. So my suggestion now is, let us have a look at the worksheet that you have due for this particular week. I'll just find it and then bring it up for us so that we can have a look at what you're going to be doing. I'm going to share the screen with you now. We're on worksheet 3 this week. So the first thing you're going to be doing is doing key signatures. And you'll see that for the last 2 weeks, I've been asking you to revise key signatures and scales so that you would be ready for today's class. So those of you who have been doing that, you'll find that at least putting scales together is much easier for you now just because you've been revising it, okay? So I want you to keep on doing that. We're going to have to get you really strong on finding key signatures and the correct sequence of sharps or flats for each of those. Do you see here? Your first question is F sharp major, not F major. This is a flat major, not A major. There's F major, there's F sharp major, okay? There's a flat major, there's A major. You'll see that they are very different with their key signatures. Okay, now write the following major scales without key signature, okay? That means putting sharps in front of each one, F sharp major descending, and B flat major scale ascending. Okay, oops, sorry, gone a bit too far there. And now with the key signature, C flat major, so not C major, C flat major ascending, and C sharp major descending. So these are all things that you have been doing before. Now, the difficult part comes, and this is going to take you quite a long time. It's identifying these intervals, both the quality and the size, okay, for all of these over here. Please remember that the first line is in the bass clef, not the treble clef. Okay, and please remember that it is always the lowest note from which you start. So in this one, for example, sorry, this one over here, you start with this note at the bottom here as the one from which you work out the interval, not the top note. It's always the lowest note, okay? Then we get into more difficult transposition exercises. Transposition is what we did last week. Last week in your worksheets, you were just going down or up in the same clef. Now you are going to go down or up into a different clef. Okay, and I explained how to do that last week. Now you're going to get a chance to practice that. And you'll see that these are exactly the same exercises as the ones that we did last week, but they're just going into different clefs. Okay. So that is your work for worksheet 3. Are there any questions that you want to ask about that? In this semester, the best way to work out if you understand something or not is actually to start practicing with the exercises. So my advice to you is to start working on worksheet 3 as soon as possible while things are still clear in your mind. And for the next few weeks, you'll be doing examples of intervals. So you'll get more than enough practice with them, but you've actually got to engage with them and try them and do all of the steps from the beginning to the end, one by one, so that you start getting a feel for how to use those steps. The steps are all included in your textbook, so you can revise from your textbook if you want to, and you can follow those steps one by one, and you'll be able to work out what the intervals are, okay? It takes a while to get used to this, but you have to keep on doing it over and over again, and eventually you'll find that you can do these quite easily after a while, okay? The same is true with transposition. The more that you do it, the better and easier it will become. So I encourage you to start with those exercises as soon as possible. If you have questions about them, you are welcome to send me a message and ask, okay? Those of you who want to be with a tutor or with the tutor, I did ask yesterday if people could send me a message. Only one person did, but I remember at least 3 people asking if they could be part of the tutor group. If you haven't told me that you want to be, but you do, please let me know so that I can send him your details and he'll be in contact with you to set up a regular time to meet with you. Okay, so please don't forget to do that today or tomorrow so that I can put you in contact with him. It's very important that you take responsibility for your studies now. We are giving you opportunities like being able to see a tutor. And if you take those opportunities, then you'll probably find that you are able to improve. But if you don't take those opportunities now and you regret it later, it will be too late. So rather make sure that you are comfortable now than find that it's too late towards the end of the semester. Also, use the opportunities during a lecture to ask questions if you don't understand something, because we can try and sort things out quickly and easily during a class. It will be easier once I'm back at the university campus and you can engage with me in the actual classroom setting. But while I'm still ill now, I don't want to be out spreading germs to anybody. So still get used to asking questions online so that you can ask them if you need to again, if this should happen again. All right. Just a reminder that tomorrow for your English class, the expectation is that you will come to the class already having read that article about eschatomia. So if you haven't already found it, you need to go and find it and you need to read it by tomorrow before the class starts. Okay, so please come prepared and ready for that tomorrow. It will also be online and only online tomorrow. So please make sure that you are ready for that. Are there any questions or comments before we finish today's class? Doesn't seem like there are, but if you want to ask questions after this class, you can send me a message on WhatsApp. I will put this video or this class up on Moodle if you want to follow it again. And there is already a video up there which goes through this class step by step. Also remember to look at the textbook because it does put everything out very clearly for you to follow. I hope you have a good afternoon and I'll see you all tomorrow at 10:30 for your English class.
Thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure.